Okay, I know it's been a while, and as you can tell, I'm out walking today. Now, those of you that know me in real life or follow me on Tumblr or Goodreads or what have you, know that I read quite a bit. The book that I read most recently was Beyond the Wall, which explores George R.R. Martin's Song of Ice and Fire up through Dance with Dragons. Personally, I enjoyed the book quite a bit. It felt a lot like reading successive essays on Tower of the Hand, which, if you haven't been there before, is a website dedicated entirely to Song of Ice and Fire, with, you know, the theories and essays and in-depth looks at the wars going on and all that kind of stuff. I'd recommend checking it out. But I digress. Back to the book. There was a lot of essays written, you know, it's a collaboration of essays written by different people. So you get a really different and diverse look at a Song of Ice and Fire through the lens of about like 12, 13 different people. One chapter that stood out particularly to me was one called Of Direwolves and Gods, and it looked specifically at the religion in a Song of Ice and Fire that George puts in. And for a quick run through, I mean, this is going to be spoilerish maybe if you haven't read up through Dance with Dragons, so whatever, be warned. But you know, the religions they talk about are those of the Ironborn, the drowned god, the old gods of the north. Thought there's somebody behind me. The old gods of the north, the faith of the seven, R'hllor and the Great Other. Is there anyone else? I don't think so, not really. But I mean, it looked the guy who wrote the essay, which I forget. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. I wish I had the book with me, but that would look ridiculous. I'm out on a walk. So the author of that essay argues that the gods in Song of Ice and Fire don't really hold any power in terms of, you know, moving the plot forward or whatever. I mean, the only ones specifically that I can think of that actually, and I don't know if that's the deity's power or not, but you can see that they wield some sort of, you know, magic, mysticism, what have you, is, you know, R'hllor and technically the old gods through the weirwood trees, you know, Bran looking through them and the green seer. He brings up the good point. Why do people follow then the faith of the seven or the drowned god? I mean, for the Ironborn, I think it's quite simple. It reflects their way of life. It gives them, you know, a way to reconcile what they're doing. I mean, the drowned god pretty much tells them, hey, go rape, pillage, you know, do the Ironborn way. And so why wouldn't they follow that god? I mean, they've been doing the raping, the pillaging, the piracy. Maybe not the piracy, but, you know, they've been doing that for, you know, hundreds of years, and that's so ingrained in their way of life now that you couldn't really take the drowned god away from them. So I mean, he has power because, and this goes for all of the gods, he has power because the people believe he has power, and you can take that back to Varys' quote, which I believe the author actually used: power resides where men believe it resides, no more, no less. I mean, you can definitely say that for the gods, especially the faith of the seven, which you could say the majority of the people in Westeros follow. I mean, you see nothing of the seven. I mean, all you see is the septs and, you know, the religious priests, but what kind of power do these gods really use, or really, you know, exemplify? I mean, you'd think like the father, the smith, the stranger, the mother, the crone, what's the other one? The warrior. They would, I don't know, use some kind of power, but you don't see that at all. And it's odd that so many of the common folk would follow the faith of the seven if there's been no, I don't know, I hesitate to say the word miracle, but there's no, you know, source of miracles associated with them. I mean, you can see with like R'hllor, I mean, Thoros of Myr resurrects Beric Dondarrion, you know, how many times? And you could say, wow, this, you know, you shouldn't be able to bring a man back to life. R'hllor really shows this power. Or at least the priest, you know, Thoros does. And, you know, Melisandre bursts, you know, shadow babies. And, you know, Moqorro heals Victarion and Dance. You know, he's got those sweet smoking wounds. So, I mean, it's an interesting discussion that he brought up. And I think I like that chapter the best. just because it gave such a thought-provoking insight on, you know, characters, and I hesitate to use the word characters in that case, you know, characters in A Song of Ice and Fire that are pretty much omnipresent, but you don't know if they're really there or not. So I like that chapter quite a bit. So that chapter in the book, Beyond the Wall, was, you know, quite thought-provoking. I thought it was really interesting. It makes you think of the gods in a whole different light, maybe. But there was another chapter that I couldn't get behind, and I didn't realize why it was in there. Maybe because I don't collect books, like first prints or whatever, or limited edition runs, and that's probably why I didn't get into it. I believe it was collecting A Song of Ice and Fire in the age of Nook and Kindle. So, I mean, it was an interesting read. I mean, it talked about how there was only, you know, a couple thousand first print runs of A Game of Thrones when it first came out in '96 in the UK or whatever. So, I mean, I just couldn't get behind that chapter, though, because it wasn't interesting to me. It wasn't relevant. I don't collect books for that reason. I collect books because I like to read them. I'm not looking forward to selling them, so. But overall, I thought it was a pretty good read. It dives right into the world of Song of Ice and Fire that George creates. It gives a lot of, you know, different looks at characters that you might not have thought of before, like how Arya, spoiler, how Arya and Theon both go through some sort of post-traumatic stress disorder. I mean, that was one of the essays, and I thought that one was fantastic as well. And I mean, you think that Arya goes through some sort of trauma, I mean, after Ned dies, so, but you don't know to what extent. And I never associated with PTSD, but the author of the essay definitely did, and put forth a pretty good argument for it. So if you're a fan of A Song of Ice and Fire, and you've read through Dance with Dragons, and I don't think it delves into the Winds of Winter spoiler chapter, so no worries there. But if you're a fan, you know, like I am, and, you know, you're not just relying on the TV show, because if you're just relying on the TV show, you'll be completely lost. So make sure you read the books before you read this. But I definitely recommend reading it. Like I said, it gives great insight into the world that you may not have thought of before, instead of, you know, just reading straight through, which I'm sure most of us did on our first read-throughs of the books, and you never got the theories and all that amazing stuff that George puts in that, I don't know, you just can't see on your first read through when you're just going for, you know, plot and story driven. You know, that's the way you just read. So I guess I'll talk to you guys next time. I'm thinking of doing more videos reflecting Song of Ice and Fire, so if you guys don't want to watch those, you know, or you're in the middle of reading the books, I'll probably be spoiling some stuff if you're not finished, so be wary of that. But yeah, I guess I'll talk to you guys later.